Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Rose Tinted Glasses podcast. If this is your first time here, my name is Natalie. I'm your host, and on this podcast, we talk about consciously choosing to see the positive in life despite its challenges. On this episode today, I invited my friend Ula Makowska, but I'll let her introduce herself in the next clip. I'm here with my friend Ula. We've known each other for quite a few years at this point, and over the years, she's helped me work through my anxious attachment style, because I used to be an anxious girly. And that's exactly what I wanted to talk about today, the attachment styles. But before we get into it, I want to give you the opportunity to tell people a bit more about what you do. Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. Well, my name is Ula Makowska. I am a trained RTT practitioner. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm also in the process of developing my own method, more soul-focused. And as with Natalie, actually, I also went through my own experience of anxious attachment growing up, so I can relate to a lot of what we're going to talk about here today. And I actually worked with a lot of people with anxious attachment as well. I worked a lot around that. I helped Natalie, as she already mentioned. So I think we're going to have a really, really interesting conversation today.
Yeah. Because I feel like attachment styles is one of those terms you hear a lot on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see
everywhere.
Yeah, you see these videos talking about, anxious or this or that, but what exactly are attachment styles? And yeah, if someone has never heard about it, what are attachment styles?
Well, attachment styles are the way basically that we relate to the significant people in our life. Our attachment style is actually formed in childhood, early childhood. So from the moment we're a baby, we form attachments with the people around us, mostly our mother, but also our father, grandparents, whoever it was that was there that was important to you, you form an attachment bond with them. And depending on the quality of that bond, the way that bond or relationship developed, the experiences that you had would impact the way that you expect relationships to go in future. And that becomes your attachment style. So after childhood, then your bond, your preferred bond would be the way that you interact with people, the way that you expect relationships to turn out. So we're going to go through the 4 different attachment styles in a moment, but depending on your expectations of others, your expectations about relationships, your feelings about yourself will depend on what you expect out of a relationship and the way that you react to certain things. And that can be in anything. So it doesn't have to just be in like a partner relationship, doesn't have to be boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, whatever. It can also be with your friends, with your family, like your parents.
In business,
co-workers, all those sorts of things. It can really impact you in a lot of different ways. And I think it's really interesting when you start to see it in the different realms as well.
Yeah. Because, I focus really heavily on attachment style in romantic relationships. Mm-hmm. But then I started noticing it in friendships. But before I started noticing it in friendships, it showed up really heavily in my business and the way I showed up with the people that I work with and my clients.
Definitely.
And I was really surprised by that because I'd already done so much work on the attachment style in the romantic relationships. But, and I'm not going to say you start from scratch, but it's the same moves where, let's say you struggle with setting boundaries in a romantic relationship. Same girl. That's also going to show up in the way you work with other people, with clients. And
yes. And I'm putting my hand up because I'm super guilty of this, because we discussed this the other day. For example, boundaries, literally boundaries. That in my romantic relationships when I was younger and friendships and everything, like worst boundaries ever, like non-existent, could not say no. And then I overcame that through a relationship with a narcissist. Thank you very much for that. And then I thought, oh, my boundaries in relationships are really good now. And then I had to experience boundaries through work and going through a burnout experience. So even though I learned the boundary lesson in that realm, I had to learn it in another sphere, in work as well. So it is something that you have to process on different layers.
Yes.
And maybe you're not ready to go through all the layers at once, because it can be a lot to work through, especially depending what level you're already at.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of different things that come up as you start to explore it.
Yeah. There's one thing before we actually go into the attachment styles. You said that your attachment style is the expectations you have in a relationship. So would you say that is a reflection of how would that be a reflection of the expectations you had as a child and how those were fulfilled when you were a child?
Yeah. So it can be, so especially when we're doing, for example, hypnosis, if we're exploring anxious attachment or avoidant attachment, whatever, we go back to scenes and times that led to the behavior of like how you express that anxious attachment or avoidant attachment or whatever. I'm just going to stick to anxious attachment because it's just easier to focus on one. So we would go back to how, why, when, and where you developed the habits associated with anxious attachment. So it might be clinginess. It might be poor boundaries. It might be obsessiveness.
One I've also heard a lot is being needy.
Yeah, needy, clingy. Yeah. In Australia, we have a word for it. We call it cling wrap. You literally attach yourself to someone. But basically, those behaviors come out of beliefs, and beliefs come out of your experiences. So it is all interconnected in that way. So your expectations are based on your beliefs. Your beliefs are based on the experiences you had. And you might have similar experiences with different people, but the belief might be different because it's all based on your internal world. Like you and I could both sit here, for example, and we could both get yelled at by a stranger, but if you have a certain belief about yourself, you might take that very strongly and I might laugh it off.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not exactly the situation that happened. It's your internal experience and belief about the situation, the thing that you internalize, that you make your own belief, which then perpetuates your behavior going forward.
Okay. Well, so now...
Getting a bit technical, but...
No, but I think that is going to help a lot of people because, like we said, there's so many videos and just content about where they go over it superficially. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be really helpful for people to hear, okay, so what does it actually mean? Where does it come from? How does it manifest?
Yeah.
So, okay, now we've talked about anxious a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's more attachment styles.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about the other attachment styles?
Well, there's 4.
Okay.
4. So anxious attachment, just to summarize a little bit what we've already said. So a person who is anxiously attached is someone who fears that love will disappear or affection or connection. So that could be possibly in childhood inconsistent love or inconsistent needs being met by the parent. And that doesn't have to be intentional. It doesn't mean the parent was a bad parent always. Could be the parent was really busy. Maybe they had a health crisis and they weren't able to be there. Could be a lot of things. But basically what the child learns is that love and support isn't always available. So if it is, I better hold on tight. Don't let it go.
Yeah.
And that leads to all the behaviors that we mentioned before. So obsessiveness, neediness, inability to be alone, poor boundaries, because if I would set my boundary, I would be afraid that the other person would leave. Mm-hmm. You know, doing everything possible to make that person stay. even suffocating them, like on the flip side, avoidants often say that anxious people can be suffocating. And I can totally understand that. Like as a anxious person in the past, I can really see how my behavior would have been very intense.
Yeah, same.
And it all comes out of a place of not wanting to lose love, not wanting to lose attention or affection or be alone. You don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's anxious attachment. On the flip side, then we have avoidant. So I think a lot of people can already resonate with maybe the first one. I think, of the unhealthy or maladaptive attachment styles, like anxious and attachment make up majority of the population. So your avoidant people are the people who ghost, the people who are chronically single, like chronically on dating apps, not comfortable with emotion, their own emotions or other people's emotions. So, for example, in a relationship, like if, women can easily be more emotional than men, like especially if you're on your cycle or something. So those kinds of things can make avoidance very uncomfortable, like just normal levels of emotion. Anxious people can be even more emotional than that. So that can be very triggering to an avoidant person. And a lot of what they feel is because they might have had childhoods where emotions weren't safe.
Okay.
So don't cry, man up, toughen up. We don't cry in this house. Just get the job done. All those sorts of things.
Yeah, suck it up, deal with it.
Literally, yeah. Like, don't be a girl.
Yeah, those kind of experiences.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So there is a bigger majority of men who are avoidant, but that's not necessarily everyone. There is also a lot of women who can be avoidant as well. And it also becomes a pattern of being hyper independent, not wanting to rely on people, and feeling more comfortable on your own. The anxious person doesn't want to be alone, and the avoidant person doesn't want to be trapped.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel like they can't be themselves. They want to have space to do their own things and live their own lives. And it's a lot easier for them to be single and maybe drop out of a relationship if they feel like, I don't know, the smallest little thing. Actually, what I found very interesting was about the ick.
Yeah.
And I don't see this talked about in many places, but I am fairly certain that the ick is something that is only really experienced by people who are avoidant.
Could you explain why you think that?
Because if you are secure, we're going to get to secure in a moment. If you are secure, you have normal, let's say, red flags for relationships. Like if they come home every night at 3 a.m. after partying with their friends, like that would be a reasonable red flag, right? So if you're secure, you have normal expectations, or you have normal kind of like no-goes for relationships. People who have the ick, if you don't know what the ick is, it's, a feeling you develop when you see your date or your partner do something that you can't unsee, and you suddenly lose all interest in them. And they can be small, they can be trivial, they can be anything. So some of the ones I've heard are, for example, watching them chase after a ping pong ball. Or like watching someone run for the bus and then they don't get it. Like trivial things, small things. And, that's essentially dismissing a potentially viable partner for something so small. And for avoidance, it's really easy to disconnect your emotions and step out of a relationship if maybe things are getting too serious, right? Because they're not comfortable with emotions. So, being a human, you still desire relationships, but then when the relationship actually takes off and maybe things get more serious, maybe you're discussing moving in, maybe they say, I love you. It's like, whoa. I need to find a reason to not be here. I need to find a reason to find some safety for myself and make some distance. So they give themselves the ick. And I've never seen an anxious person do that. I've never seen a secure person do that.
People will usually do quite the opposite, right? Where they will completely ignore red flags because they want so badly to be chosen by that person. They want that love, that reciprocal love. They want it so bad that they let their boundaries be crossed, if they have boundaries to begin with, and just completely ignore red flags because they want to be with that person so bad. Because
at the complete expense of themselves.
Yeah. And this is also something I thought I had before, was because you mentioned that avoidant people tend to be on dating apps all the time, right? But then at the same time, when it comes to commitment, they get scared.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that both anxious and avoidant people both want connection. They want love. But
everyone wants connection. We're hardwired as humans to want it.
Yeah. We all want love, right? But for avoidance, I'm losing my train of thought here. I wanted to say that
maybe love isn't safe, or...
Yes, love isn't safe, but also that avoidance, while they want it, they are, well, essentially both are scared, right?
Yeah, but they're for different reasons.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to go. That's the train of thought I had.
Yeah, and really, any unhealthy dynamic, whether it's a relationship dynamic or like a work dynamic, almost all of it comes from fear in a different way, one or another. And that can be fear of losing love, fear of being smothered by love, fear of being broke, fear of being successful. Like, there are so many fears, and they drive pretty much all of our maladaptive behavior. I mean, you can have, like, some might say, like, a positive adaptation. So, like, maybe your fear is that you're not good enough, and then maybe you become obsessed with the gym and, like, you know, like, become super dedicated to your business, so you become super successful. People might think that as a positive adaptation, but even those people are in turmoil inside.
Yeah, even though it looks healthy on the outside.
Even though they seem successful in, like, the way that society judges success, they're not happy inside. They're doing it out of fear because they don't feel good inside of themselves. They don't feel good about themselves, so they use that as a coping mechanism. So, like, that's just an example, like, that it can impact in any way. Like, here we're talking about relationships. So yeah, for an anxious person, it's fear of losing someone. For an avoidant person, it's fear of losing themselves.
Oh, I was going to say fear of getting too close to someone where they lose their independency.
Definitely.
But what you said summarizes it even better.
Yeah.
So fear of being alone and fear of
losing yourself.
Ooh, okay. So I think we've covered, like, the two most talked about.
Yes.
What other attachment styles do we have?
Yeah, so the next one I'll cover is secure. So we would probably say that secure is the most common. You know, if we had to look at, like, the population, most people are secure.
Okay.
It sometimes doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised hearing that.
Yeah. And I'll explain why in a moment. So I'll explain what secure is. So basically, secure attachment means that the majority of the time, as a child, your needs were met. Your parent was there. They were attuned to your needs and your emotions, and they were able to respond competently. I've seen a statistics, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've seen a statistic that in order to be secure, your parents had to be attuned to your needs only 30% of the time.
I've seen that too, and that's, I'd say, surprisingly low.
Yeah.
Like 30%.
Yeah, you must think how shockingly some of other people's childhoods were if it wasn't even 30%. Yeah. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But let's say, for example, it is. So, like, at least 30% of the time, your caregiver, whether that was your mom, your dad, grandparent, whoever raised you, was there and responded to you in the way that you needed when you were growing up. So that means you expect love is available. You're confident that love can be there. You're comfortable with emotions. And you're comfortable with commitment. So all those things feel normal, natural, easy. Actually, for secure people, when you describe the experience of an anxious or avoidant person, they're like, people really think like that? They can't understand it because it's just so far out of their experience.
Yeah. Because it wires your nervous system differently, right?
Totally.
When you're secure,
you're regulated.
It feels safe because as a kid in those developmental years, like you can't mentally understand what is going on, right? But your nervous system feels safe. Same in those other instances, let's say for anxious or avoidant, you might as a kid also not understand what is going on or why you're feeling this or that way, but it programs your nervous system in a way.
Yeah.
And that is why you can consciously say, like, I know that love is available or that I am supported or this or that. But if your nervous system hasn't experienced that, you're not going to believe it no matter how much you work on this, right?
Totally. Yeah. And, our nervous system directly responds to our beliefs, right? So if I have a belief that love is scary, then that's going to send my nervous system off and love is present.
Yeah.
Or if I have a belief that being alone is scary, then my nervous system is going to feel dysregulated when I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the belief is, your body and your mind respond to that belief and they make it your reality. Like right now I could tell you like, the house is burning down. Like, and you might believe me and you might freak out and your nervous system gets dysregulated, or you can not believe me and you feel fine.
Stay calm. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could believe me and then at the end I tell you, oh, that was a joke. And then you'll be like, whoa, okay. And your nervous system calms back down, but you did have the experience. You believed that thing was true, right? So it's all about your beliefs. It's not about the reality. It's about how you feel inside, what you believe about the external experience. Yeah.
So, and you help people rewire those beliefs.
Exactly.
Those beliefs.
Exactly. So what we look at is what are the patterns, right? So if you have a pattern of abandoning yourself, if you have a pattern of poor boundaries, a pattern of neediness, clinginess, obsessiveness, we go back to what was the belief that was formed. And maybe there's several, might be more than one. And we can go through one by one. We can do multiple sessions if necessary. But you want to see what was the belief? Where did I form it? And once you know what the belief is, you can actually work through processing those emotions from those memories and then reframing the belief.
Shall we give an example of a belief?
Sure.
To make it more tangible.
So a belief might be everyone leaves.
Oh, okay.
Everyone leaves eventually.
So that's why you wouldn't let people close in the first place. Because they leave anyway.
Yeah. Or it could be,
I have to prove my worth.
Yes.
I have to prove that I'm worthy.
Yeah.
In order to receive love.
Yeah, or I'm not worthy as I am, so I need to try harder.
Yeah.
Or I need to hide myself or be someone I'm not. Yeah. Yeah, what else do we have? So another common thing, which I think really overlaps, is the codependency as well. Yeah, so with codependency, there's a few different dynamics actually that it can be, but generally it's an unhealthy relationship between two people. Doesn't have to be in a romantic relationship, can be with work, can be parent-child. And usually one person is more the giver and one person is more the taker. And in these relationships, the person who's the giver can often be anxiously attached most of the time, I would say. And in that dynamic, you're really feeling like, you know, I need this relationship. I can't let this person go. I need to save them, or I need to fix them, or I need to make this work. So in the process of doing that, you don't listen to your needs. You don't listen to your wants. You don't listen to your boundaries. You don't listen to anything that your own body is trying to tell you that is right for you. And you sacrifice all of that in order to help and please and save the other person.
Would you say, well, I heavily relate to this. I used to be really codependent. I did not know how to be on my own. I didn't date until I was 18, but then at the age of 18, especially when the first relationship didn't work out, I came into this dynamic, I'd almost say, where I would date people and the relationships would never last longer than about 6 months. But I didn't know how to be on my own. I was constantly looking for someone to save or help, and it wasn't even like consciously
fill the void.
Yeah, it wasn't consciously like, oh, I am going to find someone that I am going to save, but that's the kind of people I ended up attracting or being with.
Yeah, it's your energy. Yeah,
I would end up in a lot of relationships with avoidant people, because I'd be like, oh, I can help them, I can fix them, I want to be there for them.
I can see their potential.
I can see their potential. Like, maybe I'm the one that can make them change, right?
Yeah.
And then that became, like, catering to that person became my entire personality. And for a long time, like, that was my personality. I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't really know how to look after myself. I didn't want to be alone. I think that was
definitely
the biggest part. It's not really knowing how to be alone, but it was not wanting to be alone because I didn't feel safe alone. So being in dysfunctional relationships felt even safer than being alone.
100%. I can relate to it too. I did it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that cycle like kept repeating until, well, I was in, I wouldn't say like the most toxic or dysfunctional relationship, but at that point it had happened so many times that I was just so over it. I was so over it. I basically decided, but it didn't really feel like a decision at that point, but it was like, I was just so sick of being in this dynamic all the time that I decided to just focus on myself for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was, I would say, quite recent, like 2 years ago.
Yeah. It has, like, for a lot of people,
Yeah.
it has to get that bad.
Yeah.
It has to get that bad. We absolutely cannot not change. For me too. I had to get into a relationship with a full-blown narcissist who was psychologically controlling me so much and putting me down constantly before I broke down and said, like, no, enough. No more dating, no more relationships, like, no more putting up with people's shit. Like, I put up with so much shit from people because I didn't want to be alone, and there weren't even people I liked.
That's so relatable. It's like when you look back at those relationships, it's like at the time I was so needy and clingy, right? I wanted their attention, their approval so badly. But now reflecting back, now that my brain is fully developed, I didn't even like those people that much. And that is, I think in the beginning you mentioned something about it almost being obsessive.
It is
being obsessive.
Yeah.
I think that is like the best piece of proof that it is obsessive, right? Because it's not even so much about the person, it's more about the feeling, right? The feeling of being, or chasing the feeling of being wanted and chosen.
Yeah. Yeah, and like for me also, it was just, I didn't want to be alone. Like, I just wanted someone to notice me.
Yeah.
Which sounds really sad, and like it was, but
I think that's a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah. And like, it's not nice to admit it, but it really was that. Like, I remember maybe giving away my age, but like being on Facebook, and I just literally posted my status as like, someone pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Like, how needy. But it was true. I literally just needed attention because I was so starved of love and attention that I just wanted it from anywhere.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how mentally unstable or unhealthy that person was, or how messed up my life became trying to help them or fix them or save them. That was better than being alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. Like, I've been there myself. Now, I have a question about this, right? So, obviously, we were not happy in those relationships, right? Mm-hmm. So then, why do anxious and avoidant people always, well, not always, but why do they tend to attract each other? Why do they end up together?
Yeah.
Well, they both want love, but the dynamic does not seem to work.
Yeah. I have a couple of things to say about this. So the first one is something that's very well known. We call it the anxious avoidant trap.
I've also heard it called like the anxious avoidant dance.
Yes.
Like the push-pull dynamic.
Yes. And it's a little bit like being on a roller coaster, which I can very much resonate with. So basically what it is because anxious people come in looking for love, avoidant people come in thinking they want love. So when they're looking for a new relationship and they find that person they think is so perfect, so right for them, it's really easy for them to come in and act the way they think they should be, right? Because at the start, there's no feels, right? So when there's no feels, there's no investment, there's no risk. So they can be as forward as they want, really acting the way that they would like to act. And that gives the anxious person the impression that this person really likes me. This person is really nice. They're really loving. They're exactly the kind of person that I want. And as soon as that relationship gets a little bit more serious, and it doesn't matter how long, could be like 3 months, could be a year, whenever you move in or whenever that starts to be discussed or the I love yous are dropped, then it's no longer no risk for the avoidant person, right?
Yeah. All of a sudden they risk losing their independence.
Yeah, and then the walls go up. So in order for them to create safety for themselves, there's only one solution, and that's distance. And that distance can be different thing. It can be a ghost, right? Like just blocked on all accounts. It can be like a sudden breakup, or it can even be, if it is already a little bit longer relationship, it can be pulling away or stonewalling, right? So that could be like, all of a sudden, like, I just, stop talking to you and I'm just on my phone for like 4 hours, and then I just go out and I don't tell you where I'm going, and I come back the next day. And if you were to ask me, like, where did you go? I'd be like, oh my God, like,
why would I bring that up?
So many questions. Why can't you just leave me alone? Like, that it would be your fault for asking me.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So in order to create safety and distance, the avoidant person pulls away, and the anxious person feels unsafe because love is being potentially lost. I can't lose love. I need to keep it at all costs. So they chase harder. They move in closer. Like they text furiously, like 100 texts.
Yeah, I used to be
calling, like, where are you? Why won't you talk to me? The anxious person needs the reassurance, because they don't feel in themselves confident about the relationship, which of course, why would you? If the avoidant person is pulling back, you're not going to feel confident. So they seek that reassurance, right?
Yeah.
And that reassurance and that desire for closeness is even more intense for the anxious person, and they pull away even harder. So anxious, I meant avoidant. Getting them mixed up a little bit. But they pull away harder. after that. And this is the trap, and this is the push and pull. And what can happen sometimes for avoidant people, their safe space is to not feel their emotions. So they've developed this ability to really numb them, to push them down, because that's what they had to do in childhood, right? You know,
And they just repeat that.
Suck it up.
Okay. What can be a way of suppressing those emotions?
I'm not even sure, like, I think it's, like, of course there's things like alcohol and stuff, but I really think it's a protective mechanism that they can really just shut them off.
So internal, you mean?
Internally, yeah, internally. So, you know, like, let's say, for example, you were a kid and you grew up in a home with an abusive father. If you started to cry, you would get beat. What are you going to do? You're going to turn those emotions, like, down real fast because it's safer. So it's literally a coping mechanism. And because that coping mechanism is really strong, it's very easy for an avoidant to end a relationship. No worries, no hassles, just push it all down.
Because they're used to doing it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So so in that dance, the anxious person is seeking closeness, the avoidant person is seeking space.
Yeah.
The anxious person's just going to keep trying. There's no way they're going to give up, right? It's not in their nature for them to stop trying to fix this and bring closeness back. And that's just not what the avoidant person wants. They want space. So we can talk about ways that anxious and avoidant can work together later. But if that isn't there, then they're going to pull away. And if they're not given the space, they're going to pull away harder and harder. And that may end up in a breakup. And what's very interesting is if that person, that avoidant person, starts dating someone else later, it's very possible that they might romanticize another person at the time. And then once that new relationship gets started and maybe that new relationship gets serious and then they have to be vulnerable there and that feels unsafe, then maybe they think, oh, it was better last time actually. Maybe I made the wrong choice. That last girl or that last guy, they were better.
So it takes almost a new relationship or a new situation in order for them to start thinking or processing what happened in the previous one.
I don't even think it's processing. It's more fantasizing.
Okay.
It's like idealizing. For avoidant people, it's very easy to think about like the ideal perfect relationship and the perfect person. And, you know, when I just find that one perfect person, I'm not going to have to bounce from relationship to relationship. Like all those people, it just wasn't right. It wasn't perfect. My perfect person's not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then whenever anything happens in the relationship, can be a normal level of emotion, a normal level of disagreement, a normal level of commitment, that person's not perfect anymore. The bubble has been burst.
Okay.
And so they're kind of chasing a fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, and chasing the fantasy keeps them safe, right? Because the fantasy is never going to be real.
Exactly.
So that way,
Yeah.
they keep themselves safe because no one is ever going to fit that ideal.
Yeah. No one's ever going to meet their high standards.
Yeah.
Their unrealistic, unachievable standards.
And then, you know, just for contrast, so the anxious person, they will almost lower their standards, I guess we could say.
There are no standards for an anxious person. I mean, we could be nice and say the standards are low, but you know, sometimes you can just let your standards go down under the floor.
Yeah, I definitely did that.
And, you know, maybe at the start you have some standards, but the more invested you get, the lower you drop the bar for that person.
Yeah. So, do you think that it's possible for anxious and avoidance to be together?
Yes. In a very certain scenario, and that has to be where both partners are willing to address their beliefs and work on themselves.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen that often. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But the experience usually is that the anxious person goes to therapy, they read self-help books, they listen to podcasts, and the avoidant people push down their emotions and then they act like there's no problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's their coping mechanism, to act like there's no problem, right? So it's much easier for them to be in denial about the situation or to end the relationship. The anxious person cannot escape the turmoil inside. So they have internal drive to go and fix it in whichever means necessary, whether that's therapy or research or like reading or like kind of trying to figure out what's happening. The anxious person will make an effort to figure it out, but the avoidant person, unless they have a lot of self-awareness, it's 10 million times easier to just pretend it's not happening, right? And I think it is possible for both partners to work on it, but the avoidant person has to be really determined and also committed to the relationship.
Yeah. Because I can tell you what it looks like or what the scenario would be if only one person is willing to work on it. Right?
Sure.
So, and that is actually when we started doing the RTT sessions about anxious attachment style on me. Mm-hmm. So I was seeing a therapist once a month at first, then twice a month, and then every week. That's how it progressed. At the same time, I was doing sessions with you, listening to the hypnosis tapes every day. Mm-hmm. I was reading books like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus to really understand the differences between men and women. Like you said, reading the books, journaling about it, really questioning myself, like, how can I make this work? And then I remember my partner at the time, he didn't think there was a problem, right?
Yeah.
Right. Didn't want to face the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it got to a point where he basically said, every conversation with you sounds like therapy.
Maybe because it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, because he didn't want to acknowledge it.
No.
So you had to keep trying to bring it up.
Yeah. I was making a conscious effort to try and make the communication better and make the relationship better, and because it wasn't going well, so I wanted to make it good for both of us.
You wanted to fix it.
I wanted to fix it, yeah. But it got to a point where I realized, like, I'm already going to therapy every week. I am doing hypnosis therapy. I am reading. I'm doing all the things that I can. But if I'm the only one in the relationship doing these things, like, I can't keep doing this. I can't do any more. And that's one of the first times, like, in dating that I made the decision to leave. Because usually I would get so clingy or needy that I would get dumped.
Yeah.
That was one of the first times that I was the one who made the decision to leave.
Yeah.
Because it got so uncomfortable, and I just came to the conclusion that, I
can't live like this.
I can't live like this. I'm doing what I can, but it's not working. So, and staying in that relationship just was not an option. And that,
I remember.
Yeah. And, so that's what drove me to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, I think since then I've been alone for the longest in my life, and actually learned how to be on my own.
And but I think it was also very healthy for you.
I needed it for sure.
Yeah. Because to reset.
Yeah. Because before that, I'd never really been longer alone than 6 months.
For me, I hadn't been longer alone, more like a month or 6 weeks. Like, it was ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you. So then that is when I really learned how to be alone.
Mm-hmm. I think you're an expert at it now.
Nah, not really. It is a process though, because you might think, it's actually funny you mentioned this, because since then, like I have dated people, didn't end up in long-term relationships, but I did date and I did feel a lot more secure and safe in those relationships because, well, I'd worked so much on my communication skills and then they were more secure people. So, it is definitely possible to work towards that secure attachment style.
I want to also mention something as well about that. So when you're anxious, you are more attracted to avoidant partners. And the reason is because if it's a pattern that developed in childhood, I also want to mention some people's attachment styles change when they grow older. So you might be secure from childhood, but maybe you have a terrible thing that happens to you. Maybe you have a very traumatic breakup where they cheated on you and lied to you. Maybe your partner dies. Maybe a family member dies. And your attachment style changes when you're an adult. But let's say for the example of you were anxious as a child, you were anxiously attached from your childhood, your nervous system associates love with dysregulation.
Yeah.
So that up and down, an emotional roller coaster. And people always say like, oh, I had butterflies when I met this person.
That's
they give me butterflies. And they say it's a good thing, but it's actually dysregulation, right?
Yeah.
And so because your body associates that with love, that's the connection you made. Like, this is what love feels like. When anxious people date secure people, it feels boring. It actually feels boring. And I know so many people are going to resonate with this. You go on a date with a secure person and you're like, they were really bland.
Yeah. I told you the story yesterday, right? Where one of the only securely attached relationships I ever was in, I literally broke up with them and told them, I feel like you're my brother, because that's how, I don't want to say boring, but I didn't feel that spark, right?
Yeah, the spark.
That thing you're looking for, like the spark, those butterflies, I didn't feel that. And because I was so used to basically not feeling wanted, that feeling wanted just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
It didn't feel normal. It's like, and that's the weird thing. Consciously, of course you want to be in a relationship where you're wanted, where it's reciprocal. Like consciously, yeah, that's what you want. But when your nervous system is used to the opposite, to that constant state of chaos, and you don't address that, then that's when you end up breaking up with someone and telling them, it feels like you're my brother.
Yeah, and a lot of people that I worked with, a lot of their complaints were like, I just keep going for the bad boy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I keep going back to the toxic person. And they say, they break up with that person, they're like, no more toxic people. I'm getting the nice guy. I'm getting the nice girl. Like, I'm not getting fucked over again. And then they meet one and maybe start a relationship and it just feels like nothing to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't feel the spark and then they don't continue the relationship. So it's really essential to address the beliefs, right? It's really essential to address the patterns, because for as long as you associate sparks and emotional roller coasters and butterflies and this tingly feeling inside with love, you're never going to find a secure partner. And even if you do, you're going to leave them. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not just about like, I'm going to choose someone different. Like, no, your nervous system is picking for you. So you need to be aware of that. And you need to be really conscious. Because if you keep doing it and you keep telling yourself, I'm not going to pick the toxic person anymore, and you keep doing it, then you need to look at the patterns. You need to look at the beliefs. What is driving me to pick that person? Why do I feel that the right guy was so boring? Yeah, like, it's really common.
So how can people start doing that? Addressing those patterns and those beliefs?
Yeah, so the first step is awareness, right? Like, so many people go through their lives without ever being aware of what drives them. You know, it's that true feeling of like, you don't know what you don't know. And it's like running through your life blind. It's actually really victim mode, because you're not aware of your own patterns and you blame it on other people. It's like, why is there only shitty men in the world? Or why is there only shitty women in the world? It's like, no, that's not true. It's just you keep rejecting the ones that are not shitty.
Yeah, and also I wanted to add on to that, when you have that belief of all men are shitty, that's literally like the filter or the lens that you see life through. So that's all the men that are going to get your attention.
Yeah.
Because
you attract it.
Yeah. You're literally going to attract only those men if that's your belief.
Yeah. And if we look at it from a more spiritual level, you continue to attract the thing that you haven't learned yet. Whatever the lesson is that you haven't learned, whether it's like to put yourself first, to value yourself, to feel deserving of a good relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that thing is that you need to learn, until you learn it, the universe is going to keep sending you ways for you to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like, if you keep failing the test, you keep having to do the test. Right? And until you pass the test, until you learn to set boundaries, learn to put yourself forward, choose other people consciously, secure partners consciously, until you do those things, you're going to keep getting the test thrown in your face and you're going to keep failing the test.
That's what I wanted to say with when I started dating more securely attached people.
Yeah.
But what you said about you're going to keep getting the test, right? I want to zoom out a little bit and say here that so after I dated those securely attached people, I thought, oh, I have healed the pattern. You know, I'm fully secured now. But then I dated someone very briefly and I full on regressed into my anxious attachment style and fell back into the pattern of, oh shit, they haven't replied to me in 2-3 days, texting them all the time, calling them until they pick up the phone. I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed of myself because I fully thought and believed that I had healed that specific pattern.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show, even though I had experienced securely attached relationships, but in the meantime, right? But that just goes to show how deeply rooted that is in your nervous system and your beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like what we allow ourselves to experience.
Yes.
Because part of it is like knowing when to say no, right? You know, you can't weed out every avoidant person before you meet them. You can't weed out every like anxious person if you're an avoidant. You can't weed out your triggers, right? You end up meeting people and forming relationships, and sometimes those patterns show up afterwards. So you need to be able to be aware of when enough is enough for yourself.
Yeah.
So like if you're avoidant, I'm gonna add with like a little bit of like a clause, because obviously the pattern for an avoidant, like when is enough is very easy to step into. So maybe it's like, maybe when do I need to explore the patterns that are holding me back, and when is this actually not going to progress in a healthy way, right? So for an anxious person, it might be like, okay, so this person clearly doesn't want to work on it. This person clearly shows the same behaviors, and you've asked them if they'd be open to working on it, or you've asked them if they want to explore attachment styles, and they're just clearly not interested, and you've given them opportunities, and you've said like, hey, I would really appreciate if you need space. Can you, for example, tell me how much space you need? How long? Like, do you need a couple hours? Yeah. Like, I want to give you space. Do you need like 20 minutes? Do you need to the end of the day? Or how long do you need?
Yeah.
Right? So like, for example, working arrangements like that, if that person's not open to it, you need to think for yourself, like, do I want to put myself through this again?
Yeah.
I've put myself through this so many times. When is it going to be time for me to stand up for myself?
Yeah.
Right? And it can be hard. And I'm not saying like every anxious and avoidant person need to break up. Like, you know, like there can be couples who work it out and get married and stay married and have children, and they work on it
Together.
yeah. And you know that it's still that's their tendency, but they find ways to make it work, or you find ways to compromise, or you find ways to give space or give reassurance when asked, but, you know, express when you need something else in return, right? So there's ways that you can do that. And I think it's all about being open and honest with yourself and being open with the other person as well, right? If you can be open and honest and work together through it, then you can make it work. But I realized that we actually didn't finish the different styles. And I know I spoke about secure, and that one's a little bit easier.
We've touched on secure, anxious, avoidant. There's another one, right?
Yeah. And the last and the fourth style is a disorganized attachment style. Do you know about this one?
From what I understand is that it's a bit of combination from anxious and avoidant.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have a feeling you're going to be able to explain this a lot better than I just did.
Yeah, sure. Well, in summary, it's pretty much that. So you have traits of both anxious and avoidant at different times in the same relationship. So a person who's disorganized really experienced trauma.
Yeah.
Like this kind of style forms when your caregiver is also your abuser.
Okay.
So that can be like yelling, hitting, sexual abuse, all the sort of things like domestic violence, right? This pattern really shows up if the home was unsafe. But as a child, think of it this way. If you're a baby or if you're a little kid, even if you're being abused, if you were to leave, you wouldn't survive.
Yeah, you have
like if you're 4 years old, you can't keep yourself warm, you can't keep yourself fed, you're going to die without your parent. So despite how bad it is, you're going to stay and you're going to love them because that's what you need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So, some people who have this experience, they blame themselves, like they shame themselves for what they went through. But actually, it's very important to understand that there was no way for you to have done anything different. It wasn't their fault. It was obviously the adult.
But they internalize it.
They internalize it, right? And they also internalize that the person who gives me love is also the most dangerous person. So that's why you have patterns of anxious and avoidant. These people desperately want love, right? And the moment that there is safety, the moment they feel close enough, there is such a feeling of unsafety that they need to push away aggressively. And then once they pull away, they feel that desperation for love again. So they come back very aggressive, clingy, needy, like reassurance, all those things. And then the moment they get what they need or what they want, they pull back again. So it's very harmful for the person who's experiencing it, and it's really challenging for the person that they're with as well.
Yeah.
It's a very challenging experience for both people, and if you resonate with that, then you really would be better off to seek professional help if you haven't done so already, because there's a lot of, firstly, trauma, right? Unhealthy attachment, nervous system, possibly also PTSD. or complex PTSD, which we're going to talk about in another episode. These people really need to make sure they're in a supportive environment with someone who can really help them work through that, because that's not something that is going to be easily addressed on your own. I'm not even sure if you can address it on your own. I think you really need someone who's experienced in that to help you. And it is possible to recover, and it is possible to become secure, but you have to really take that healing process seriously and take care of yourself, So it is very sad. And I think for anyone who does resonate with that type, just don't blame yourself, right? And, you went through something that's very difficult, and you need to give yourself some grace and some understanding and take care of yourself, right? Take care of what you need to move forward.
Yeah. I just wanted to add in here, because you said take care of yourself. Something that's helped me personally is looking at the love languages, which could be a whole episode on itself, right? But
very interesting.
Looking at what are the love languages. So I don't know if I remember them all off the top of my head, but it's acts of service, words of affirmation, touch, physical touch, quality time. Are there more?
Gifts.
And gifts. So, let's say you and a partner, you want, I think everyone has all of the love languages, but
some different degrees.
Yeah. For some people, let's say they value quality time more than gifts. Mm-hmm. So I started asking myself for each of these love languages, how can I do that for myself? Right? So, because I wanted the love from the other person, but then that phase when I was like, okay, I'm done with relationships now, how can I actually start looking after myself? I started asking myself, okay, how can I do each of these love languages for myself? And then let's say words of affirmation, I actually started saying affirmations out loud. I started journaling. Quality time was also journaling. I was actually being present with myself. Physical touch. I would actually start putting on body lotion. Like, it sounds really silly.
Or for a massage or something.
Or for a massage. But before, I didn't even put on body lotion. Like, I did skincare on my face, but I didn't put on body lotion.
Yeah, disconnected from the body.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's one way I started doing that for myself.
Yeah, and as you bring that up, I have a feeling, and maybe you can tell me if this is true for you, but the love language that you desire most is the thing that you were most deprived of in childhood.
Yeah. Well,
do you feel that's true for you? Because I feel that's true for me.
Yeah, I think so. But because I had to think back, because now I think all of the love languages are equally important. Like, except for gifts, maybe I don't value that much. Like, mainly, I value communication and quality time. But I remember telling my ex on multiple occasions, and not just my most recent one, but all of them, is that, why don't you ever tell me you love me, right? I really wanted to hear it, even though, like, they might show it in their actions.
Definitely.
I almost didn't believe it until I actually heard it.
Yep.
So, yeah, and I'm getting a bit choked up right now, but in my home, we never ever said, I love you. We never talked about emotions to begin with.
Same.
It was just not something we talked about. It was just, suck it up, stop crying, stop being so dramatic, and deal with it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
We never talked about emotions, never said, I love you. Even now, it's still really hard. It's still really hard. But, reflecting, that is definitely the words of affirmations.
Yeah.
We had the least at home, and the one that I initially craved the most.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely the same for me. And I think, I don't know, maybe people can comment and share their experiences with it. Because I have a feeling that that's true for a lot of people, or like a majority of people. And it's really interesting to see how that plays out. And absolutely what you said, you don't have to wait for someone else to give it to you, right? The most amount of healing happens when you give something that you need to yourself. You know, that's listening to your own needs and providing for yourself. Because if you were disorganized or anxious or avoidant, the thing you needed was not available. So if you're an anxious person, you know, like that receptivity, you know, that being there for you and addressing your needs, that wasn't there. Like, they may not have been present. For an avoidant person, the safety to be vulnerable wasn't there. Right? So they need to give that to themselves. They need to let themselves be present with their emotions. And that is not going to be easy, by the way, but is very important. And for a disorganized person, the safety wasn't there. You need to give safety to yourself.
Yeah. And it isn't until you experience that safety within yourself that you can actually start feeling safe with other people.
Definitely. You cannot have a healthy relationship with others if you're still coming from a place of wanting someone else to fill your own cup, right? You need to each fill your own cups and then come together in a healthy relationship. You can't, like, that's what codependency is. Like, you fill my cup, I fill your cup. And then if for whatever reason you don't fill my cup, I'm not going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Then you won't fill mine, and then it's dysfunctional.
Exactly. It's totally dysfunctional. You need to fill your own cup first. And if you've never practiced or learned how to fill your cup, you need to start learning how to do that.
Yeah. Do you want to make a little nuance here, or maybe ask you this question? Do you think you need to be fully healed before you can be in a relationship with someone else? Or can you still be learning how to love yourself while you're in a relationship with someone else?
You can definitely be learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to be perfect.
I just wanted to make that little nuance here, because I know if I would have heard this a couple of years ago, before I went on my healing journey, I would have felt a bit, oh no, do I need to? And that's really the anxious side playing up, right? But I would have almost felt like, oh, I don't deserve love because I don't love myself yet.
I mean, I can see that reasoning and that logic. I think, especially for an anxious and a disorganized person, there is an important step in taking time to yourself at one stage.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you wouldn't have got to where you were if you didn't fully end those relationships and not start any new ones for a while.
Yeah.
Right? You needed to be in a place where you could be comfortable being on your own, because those anxious and disorganized are not comfortable being on their own, where you actually recognize what your boundaries and your needs are.
Yeah.
Because you've probably never, ever seen them or recognized them or acknowledged them or respected them. And in order to respect them, you need to know what they are. And in order to know what they are, you need to have some space to figure that out.
Yeah, you need to get to know yourself first.
Exactly. You need to get to know yourself. And I realized that as well, like, when I went through it, it's like, wow, I don't even know, like, what I want or who I am or, like...
Oh, I relate so hard to that.
Exactly. So it is really essential that at some phase, at some point, you take some time to yourself. And if you are, say, for example, you're already married, you're already in a committed relationship, that may literally look like just telling the person, like, hey, I need to do some work on myself. I may need your support so that I can take some time to work on myself and figure this stuff out for me, because I can't go forward anymore. And if we're going to continue like this, I really need to figure this out. So you can ask them for support. Maybe you need to ask them for space. maybe you just need to go on a vacation for yourself, like 2 weeks on your own, whether that's like a full-on vacation or just like, you know, by the beach or like in a hut in the forest, whatever it is you want. But you want to actually spend time with yourself and do things that you like. You might not even know what you like.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't know if you like drawing or running or kayaking or dancing. Maybe you have been trying to make others happy for so long that you never even developed your own personality.
Yeah.
Or your own likes or dislikes, right? So
I feel I need that space because like I was there for a long time, right?
yeah.
When I finally made the decision to be on my own, I was like, okay, well, I don't even know what I like.
Yeah.
I had my business, so a lot of my personality was running my business, but I didn't have, I didn't know what I wanted to do outside of running the business.
Yeah.
So I gave myself permission, or I gave myself space to start exploring. There's, even if it was just a little impulse, like, oh, I want to go roller skating. Okay, go and take yourself on that date or bring a friend.
Yeah.
But even if it's just a little impulse, let yourself explore that interest.
Totally.
And you might, after doing, you know, going roller skating once, decide, well, I never want to go roller skating again. But at least now you know.
Too.
Now you know, and you can try something else.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to say that too. Going out and exploring, you know, even if you go out and try something and it's the worst thing you've ever done in your life, that's not a failure. That's actually a win because you now know yourself better.
Yeah.
Right? And it's all about self-exploration at that stage, like figuring out what you like, who you are, where your energy sits, what lights you up, what your needs are physically, emotionally, mentally. Like, do you need mental stimulation? Have you not been receiving that? Do you need maybe more physical affection? Have you been letting yourself miss out on that, right? Like, whatever that thing is, you need to figure it out for yourself. So to bring it back, yeah, you need to spend that time. If you've never done that, you never had that, you're going to have to make space for it. But other than that, I don't think you need to be fully healed. Like, that's an important phase, and you can still be on the journey of learning how to implement your boundaries, learning how to communicate with others in a healthy way. You know, you can still learn all those things while you're in a relationship. And relationships are the best teachers because they're mirrors, right? And some people, when they hear that, like that people are mirrors to us, they literally think, well, if I'm anxious, they're going to be anxious, and that I see that I'm anxious. It's not that. They're not the same as you. A mirror is someone who reflects back to you what you don't see in yourself, right? So, for example, what you said before, that you ended that relationship, maybe you had a couple of secure relationships here and there, and then you had a very short interaction with someone who triggered those anxious tendencies in you again. If you didn't have that mirror, you would not have known that there was still more to hear. Right? So that's what I mean by relationships can be mirrors. Is very important. And I actually don't think that you can be fully healed if you stay single forever.
No, because that's also something.
And actually fully healed doesn't exist. That's not a real thing. Like, that's like an idealization that a human like mind would like to think of. Like, when I get to the end of the road, it's going to be so much easier. It's like, that's not real.
It's just the same core wounds that are going to keep showing up in different, like, varying degrees. And I like to say different or same story, different packaging, right?
Yes.
Because it's always the same core wounds, because you only have so many core wounds. Are going to keep showing up, but in different circumstances, varying degrees. So I'm glad that you made that distinction between being fully healed and the reality of it. But what you said about mirrors, right? Because I went from one extreme to the other, from being really anxiously codependent in relationships to completely isolating myself and still immersing myself in like the healing, I call it the healing trap now. Still doing so much inner work, and you feel like you're getting better, right? But the thing is, yeah, you're feeling better because you're not getting triggered, because you're on your own all the time. So you go from one extreme to the other. And while I do think having like that period of isolation, like I wouldn't necessarily recommend like fully isolating yourself.
No.
I do think it's good to learn how to be
Friendship's so important.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely good to learn how to be on your own, but that's not the same as completely isolating yourself.
No,
because that's just the other extreme. That can be just as self-destructive.
Totally. Yeah, and I want to also mention one thing as well, because we spoke about how certain wounds come back around.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can feel like you're in a circle, right? And I'm sure you probably felt this. At the time, you probably felt, how the fuck am I here again? Have I not learned anything? Yeah. Why am I feeling this way after I did all this work on myself, right? And so that's really like a circle, like, like I started here, I went back around, I took the journey, and I'm here again, right? And I want to flip that perspective actually and give another idea, and that healing is more like a spiral.
Yeah.
And also the spiritual journey, healing, whatever you want to think about. It's a spiral. So you start at the bottom and then you work your way up, and you're at the same point. So like if you looked at it top down, you're at the same point in the circle, but actually you're higher up because you've learned more, you have more understanding. So while you come to the same point, you may experience the same topic, the same wound. You're not experiencing it in the same way. You're not as deep. And for you as well, I know you told me that experience for you was very short-lived. You dipped down into the darkness, into the heaviness, and you were able to pull yourself out really fast. Whereas in the past, you would not have been able to pull yourself out of it.
I would held on for dear life.
Exactly. So even though you came back into an experience which was very similar and might have felt like a failure, it was not, because you didn't let yourself fall as deeply. Even though the experience, the feelings that came up were the same, you still had grown. So it didn't like destroy you in the same way as before. So if you do feel like that happens, I've done some healing and I've come back around, have a look and see where it's different. How is this different from before? Because if you've really been doing the work, you will see that, okay, maybe I did get triggered by this, but actually I was able then to cut it off, and before I would have chased harder, or whatever the thing is. You have grown, you have done the work. So recognize it like that, and don't let yourself get disheartened if you feel that experience coming around again.
Yeah. I think you summarized that really, really well. Because I know, knowing myself, like a couple of years ago, if this situation would have happened, I would have held on for weeks and been...
I know.
Yeah, I know, it would have dragged on for weeks, if not months. And now, well, yes, it's still deeply affected me. I was able to still go about my days, whereas before I would have not been able to function. And I was able to, after a couple of days, be like, okay, well, I'm not letting myself repeat this anymore. So while I was upset that, it happened again, looking back now, I really resonate with what you said about it's not going to affect you as deeply, and you will respond in different ways.
Yeah. Because you've done the work.
Okay, well, Ula, thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we covered a lot today.
We did. So to summarize, 4 attachment styles. safe, secure, oopsie, anxious, avoidant, and then disorganized. The best way for people to heal their attachment styles would be to first become aware of their triggers and how their relationship dynamics are playing out. And
also like look back into childhood, like where was this pattern first starting? And if you're having trouble with that, you know, someone like me, like a hypnotherapist, can really help with like getting to the bottom of it if you can't really find it yourself. But it is important to look back, where did this pattern begin for me as well? Yeah.
And so let's say people wanted to work with you, or they wanted to know more about your new method that you're developing. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram. My Instagram is my name, Ula Makowska with an underscore. It's a bit of a long one. ULAMAKOWSKA. Natalie's going to put it in the notes.
Yes, I will link
with an underscore at the end, or my website, which is the same, ulamakowska.com. From there, you can book a discovery call or book a session with me. We can have a chat, see what I can help you with, and we can go from there.
I highly recommend her.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Ula. And I also wanted to mention we are going to be doing a couple more episodes together. So stay tuned for that.
See you.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it till here, if you enjoyed, please support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing on Substack, Spotify, or YouTube. And I will see you next week.